I typically try not to be upset when I do these voiceovers. First of all, let me say hello, day 152. I recorded about 15 minutes of this, maybe 20 minutes of this, and then my computer right in the middle of it literally said restarting. Of course, it didn't save anything, so the whole 20 minutes was totally wasted. The good news is maybe I can think of something even more insightful to say this time. Bad news is, how would that even be possible? So, I mentioned several episodes, whatever, that I gave this. I sort of combined. I took out McNeil's thing and put it into this scene with Paul, and so what I'm trying to do here is, it's so weird because I recorded that about 30 minutes ago, and then it quit, and so I left and did a mini workout, and now I'm back, and so what's going through my head is what I said the first time and trying to match it, and in consequence I'm saying nothing at all. So this idea here of Paul's, that Holly has to make a choice between helping one kid a lot or helping a whole bunch of kids, basically pointing them in the right direction. And even though he doesn't come out and say it, I would think that his thought would be, don't get too involved with any one kid. Just do your job and move on. Because as he said a few lines above, it is for you, meaning your work here is done. However, I've got about 7 lines. His speech, shall we say, is 7 lines. I wonder at what point you would consider dialogue becoming a speech. It would probably be, I don't know, it'd be interesting. 10 lines or more would almost be a speech, or it'd be some crazy amount of exposition that would be unacceptable to me. So I mean, when you think about it, which I sometimes do, in movies, it would be super interesting to know in any given, if it's a superhero movie, it's a fantasy adventure, if it's cops and robbers, if it's a comedy, if it's a romantic comedy, if it's a drama, if it's a tragedy, if it's a horror film, if it's a thriller, or some combination thereof, what the average dialogue number of words that each line is. If it's the equivalent of, 10 words, which would be maybe 2 lines, or if it's 20 words, which would maybe be 4 lines. Obviously depends on how big your vocabulary is. Not how big, but how many letters your words have. But I would venture to say that most movies in the mainstream variety are probably 3 lines or less. I would say that would be the vast majority. Anybody want to take me up on that? Comment below. Do your own research and comment below. I'm going to save this just in case this stupid computer crashes. Good news, it didn't crash when I saved it. So then, having said all that, now I'm just playing around with this thing, and I got Paul's thing down to 5 lines, which isn't too bad. He's got a 5 line above, and of course you can really get hung up on how long the dialogue is, because obviously there's been scripts with big long speeches like the King's Speech that have turned out just dandy. So I think I tried about 5 lines, and I ended up with that one, at least for now, for Holly, which tells us, I mean, it fits in the scene, but it also tells us she has at least some grasp of the Bible, and more precisely, the Sermon on the Mount. Wouldn't you know it? But the line I've come up with for Paul, which I'll write here in a minute, is, it's another one of those cutesy, convenient, clever lines, which I think movies have a lot of. And I mean, it makes perfect sense, but I don't know if it really works or not. Might be too cute. All right. So he's kind of getting her back to reality. And when I recorded the voiceover the first time, I went on a tangent as I am wont to do, but I can't remember what the topic was. So uh, it was a good 2 or 3 minutes. I'm not saying it was good, but I'm saying that's how long it lasted. Maybe it'll come back to me as I work on this. So, of course, we've scrubbed the idea of the kids playing volleyball, and now it's Holly and her colleagues. She's having unsuccessful time dating. We hear the thing about the very creepy venture capital, which I think is kind of clever. Um, it's one of those, when Janice winces, it's one of those shirt collar flings. And you're, I don't know how to say that. And, of course, the actress probably would say, I'm not doing that. That I'm not giving up on anyone is a little bit trite. I mean, obviously it is meaning I'm not giving up on Lexi, but we'll see if that stays. Okay. Gosh. Something in this scene is what set me off on the tangent. But this, I kind of like this. I mean, the first line of Lexi's tells us that she has, in fact, been giving her a stuffed animal. Holly, hard habit to break. And then Lexi, that gives her the opening to talk about the college. You know, it's not like I got into college, but she's doing it through the back door. And then I think it's okay for Holly to say you got in, and then the scholarship. And, I know what I sort of remember the tangent, but I haven't gotten to that part yet. So, I just got to it. So you see that 7 foster families in 12 years. And I don't know if I just literally realized it as I was writing or if I had already made any changes earlier. But now the new idea is that instead of staying with Abby's family and getting adopted and having a relatively normal childhood, Abby's family did not adopt Lexi, and she's bounced around, as she says, 7 foster families. So that's one every 18 months-ish, roughly, which ironically is, I think, kind of the average. And I don't know how often they get adopted, they get put back in, and then they have like these group homes with teens, which is a little research I did, very little. And I do want to do some more research on the whole foster system, because I guess the point is nothing to do with that. But so Lexi is a little more kind of vulnerable, a little more fragile. And having said that, it's not like she's a wimp or a pansy or anything, because Holly has been there to sort of mentor her, be her role model to some extent. So the idea is that something could touch her off, and this would give her a little more of an excuse if something happened where it made it look like Holly was the bad person, that Lexi could turn against her, because she's basically put a lot of faith in her. And so that's kind of what I'm driving at early on, kind of foreshadowing it a bit. Will it pay off? We'll find out when the movie gets made. In the meantime, I have this pregnant pause because it's actually the next day, and I'm resuming my voiceover. So yeah, they're going through this new backstory of Lexi's growing up period. We find out that she's been around a bit, as Monty Python said, in a different context, of course, if you know Monty Python at all. Now we get into this, introducing the idea of, are they going somewhere? Are they doing something? And of course, up until now, they've had plans to go up to this Eagle Creek escape cabins, and the go-karting, maybe axe throwing was mentioned at some point. I've thrown in a few things. And so now I'm kind of coming up with a new idea. This Holly's line about drinking, that's stupid. So ignore that if you could. So now speaking of getting introduced to ideas, we find out that Lexi and Abby have remained friends or have rekindled a friendship. And I'm getting deja vu because I go, man, I already commented on this, but it's because I did. And then the whole thing it didn't get deleted. It just never got saved. So, yeah, deja vu. So now, yeah, they've rekindled their friendship, and Abby is dating this guy. He's got a brother, and Lexi has sort of been set up. Maybe it's not a date yet, or maybe they're just going to hang out. Maybe they're going to be friends. Maybe he's a total jerk. We don't know. So as I write this the first time, I'm making this, it's not even levity. It's kind of lamety of the idea that Lexi says, no, he's too young for you. And that doesn't really have any place here. But the point is, it gives us to when am I going to meet him? Not until I do. So now, oh my gosh, what a terrible line. Whoop. Oh, I'm jumping all over the place. What in the heck? I literally don't know. I was literally reading one thing and now it suddenly jumped. Okay. A little resort in Smithville. So at this point, Lexi has got the idea that they're going to go up to this place, these cabins. But if you think about it, I mean, she's 18 and she can do anything she wants, especially since she's not really part of a home. So legally she could, sleep around or whatever. Not that she would, or not that is what this is going to lead to. But the point is, would the other kids' parents, even though, they're legally of legal age and everything, and maybe it's not the parents, maybe it's the kids themselves, would they really go, and would Lexi agree to go up to these, kind of romantic type cabins with a boy she's never met? Doesn't really make as much sense as the previous version when she had been dating him for 3 years and they were, again, she's only 18, but they're relatively serious, blah, 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 or at least on the road to that. So, then we talk about, do you not trust me anymore, etc. And here I go jumping around again. So now, stumbling and bumbling. Rachel is calling and is going to tell Holly what's going on. Again, this is page 13. So I feel like this still needs to be contracted a bit and happen a little bit sooner. So I'll need to work on that. But in this case, Holly finds out from Rachel that her ex's, or Lexi's father's, prison sentence has either been reduced or he's going on a parole or something's going to happen. I don't know if at this point I had corresponded with the deputy U.S. Marshal person who's been helping me to get me some direction on this, although she wouldn't, I don't know if I checked with her or I just Googled it to see what happens, but she did explain it later. But anyways, word is he'll be out in a week. So what does that mean? I don't know. It sounds like a very movie-ish thing to say. Holly, by saying that's impossible, we are led to believe that she has no idea what's going on, thought he was going to be in jail for a long more time. Rachel comes back and says, look, basically she doesn't say it, but I'm worried about him finding her, so I need to talk to her first, and explains things. And then Holly's saying, look, there's no way anything's ever going to happen bad to her. And oh my gosh. And now we're back to the beginning of the script. I wonder why. Hear the birds in the background. This is just crazy. This is crazy. I'm just changing a few little things here because I haven't changed them lately. All right, so here, I left his name the same. That's interesting. I mean, why do I, as fast as I'm going through this, why am I deciding to change this little bit of stuff? It's just crazy. It's like that kind of analogy I've given maybe once or twice when you're plowing snow or shoveling snow or driving somewhere in snow, and you get to a certain spot and you can't get any further, so you have to back up and get momentum again. But this is sort of like I've gone back to the beginning of the driveway and am giving up enough momentum to push a little snow at the bottom of the driveway, 300 feet away. Okay, gosh, I literally don't know why I went way back here, but I'm working on this section. This one, I get it. You join the system. That's Paul's line at the top of 8. Oh. Yeah, that's just exposition. That's horrible. I'm trying to explain basically how she got into this situation, and maybe, I don't know, is any explanation needed? I mean, this may be something that would happen. This might be a conversation. So I'm trying to fudge it around that it would be acceptable, because just because a conversation works in real life, obviously it doesn't mean that it can work in a script, or vice versa. In your case, this is going to walk on the wild side. I mean, that's slightly better, but not entirely sold on it. So I get a taste of the wild side. Oh my gosh. So this is a little bit better because Paul said all this stuff, and Holly is saying, well, are you just talking, or is there a question in there? And the bandwidth, no man can serve two masters. And you can't serve anyone if you die in the line of duty. Did I just write that line? Oh, if you get killed. Yeah, that's... I mean, that's kind of clever, which no one ever has working in asset forfeiture. You're welcome. So maybe slight improvement. Maybe. You tell me in the comments after you subscribe to my channel. Turn on notifications. Okay, so this is just, it's so funny, not funny, that I keep going back and keep working on it, but I guess it's just what I got to do. I am taking out the name of the website, which I'm happy to see. This is 12/23. So it's still almost 6 weeks. I'm staying right on there. I'm trying to get caught up. All right, so we're zooming ahead pretty well here. All right, let's see. It was the least I could do. No, that would be those 7 families. So that's not, it's not grammatically correct English, but I think you can connect the dots and understand what she's saying. So my first family, we stayed in touch. You've been doing. Okay, so now I'm changing this. I'm introducing the fact that he's a twin brother. Not that that matters, but it kind of does. Um, I could be your Aunt Holly. So this is. So I don't know. I'm just sort of diddly dallying through this. I'm trying to. Okay, so I'm trying to get to the part where, and maybe this is because I did find out some information from the deputy U.S. Marshal about kind of the order of events when someone gets out of prison. Because then they get a parole officer and they get some other person they have to check in with and all that stuff. But again, I mean, you have to be accurate to a certain extent, but the audience isn't going to like pause the movie if they're watching it at home and get up and go Google it probably. So it just has to be to that point, whether it's this or it's geography where you fudge some distances or locations or landmarks where they can buy it along with everything else in your movie. Because when it gets to the point that it's just too unbelievable, then they may just quit watching. So unfortunately, this is still happening on page 13, the catalyst/inciting incident. So getting better, but I still am hoping I can push that up a little bit more. All right, so we're at the walking trail. Holly's just unloaded a bunch of stuff on Lexi. She's trying to piece it together. And I need to cut this scene down. I mean, that basically summarizes in 4 lines and 1 question everything that Holly has told Lexi and her reaction to it. Is it a little much? Possibly. Thinking. I need a little wheel spinning around. And then I've got this whole thing that I mean, this is sort of a carryover from the previous version or versions of the idea that how upset would Lexi be that Holly hadn't told her any of this sooner. In the previous way back version, of course, they literally grew up together and there would have been much more an occasion for Holly to do this. But now if she's seeing Lexi every month, 2 months, etc., their conversations would probably be less about this sort of thing and more about, hey, how you doing? How's school? How's things? You know, keep your chin up. Maybe takes her and they do some fun activity or something. But I think it makes it more believable that Holly wouldn't have told her about all this stuff. And now we get into the whole thing about being legally an adult and Holly being afraid of how Lexi would have reacted to the news. Yeah, so I'm just, again, kind of fiddling around with this part. Man, I had a sudden reflection back to the previous 151 days and just how much talking I've had to do to get through some of these sessions and not just sitting here and reading you dialogue, because that's stupid and it's of no help, if any of this is of help. But, you know, coming up with something insightful or meaningful to say, as I just keep working through this part of the script just over and over and over and over and over and over. I've said it a million times, but I feel like I need to apologize for these last 50 days, literally. It's just cray-cray, as the young kids say. And so what's this a symptom of? It's a symptom of not coming to class prepared to do the work. If I would have done all the homework, and I've had this conversation with myself before, if I completely would have beat this out in the beat sheets and in the outline, the treatment, whatever you want to call it, would this be going a lot smoother? Would I not have been stuck in rewrite hell forever? Maybe. Would it still be... Is this eventually going to be the same script it would have been otherwise? I guess that's the question. If it takes you 3 or 4 months to outline and think all this stuff through, and then 2 months to write the script, or you spend 4, 5, 6 days, whatever, outlining and all that, and then you go on the script and it takes you twice as long to write it because of that. A, do you finish at the same time? And B, which is the better product? I'm not going to say which, but is the better product, but obviously it's apparent which of those roads I have taken. And, we're 152 days in and on page 15 of the script. If you look at it that way, that's 10 days per page, plus a little bit, which is extremely discouraging. But I guess it's funny what gives me hope and yet what makes me not so much hope is having had these people read it prior to me sending it to this industry guy and everybody liking it so much and saying, hey, you better start working on the sequel and all that. And the ego goes pump, pump, pump. And then you kind of get a reality check. So I don't know if that is encouraging or discouraging or just sort of the facts of life and you take it like a big boy and move on. Okay, back to what we're talking about here. As adult, you can decide. So this is still a very key thing she wanted out of the mob and motherhood. However, that's going to be worded. That is Lexi's really big takeaway once she finds out this information and then kind of what's going on. Which, given her upbringing now, probably even more than before, would hopefully make her a little more fragile, a little more paranoid. But would it make her even less likely to want to meet up with her mom to get answers? I don't know. I'm sure it's different for every young person, young adult, but I would imagine there is just some appeal. There's some draw there. There's some make up your own metaphor. There's something in you that would want to meet your birth mother, birth father, whatever, especially mother probably, but maybe father too. So now I'm looking down to, okay, I got to get rid of that because she has no parents, so to speak. Oh my gosh, Jack, you're going backwards. She testified, and my mom, this is where you were next week, but seeing been arranged for me to mother. Of course. This is still, I think, a hilarious line of Holly's, but I don't know if it'll survive or not. Especially if, obviously, the logistics or the logic of the script changes. This is, okay. Sometimes when I jump, it's just because I hit the wrong key, so I have to give myself some grace for that, cut myself some slack. So this is, and I don't know if I had this in here before or if I'm just coming up with it now or just rewording it, but that is something now that Lexi has been this new childhood where she's been around, blah, 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 blah. I think it would put her more in the state of mind of what she just asked. How much of everything you've done has become because you felt sorry for me? And then that leads her to the owl, and do you buy these in bulk? So suddenly things have really gone horribly wrong for Holly. And of course she feels terrible. Lexi is piling on and then literally throws her the owl, which Holly reflexively catches. So the whole thing, introducing the Eagle Creek escape and all that, goes out the window because I know this, but I don't always practice what I am taught. I was going to say practice what I preach, but I cleverly changed my wording to have more conflict, more, drama, whatever. So the scene just doesn't go along like a smooth sailing. We have some rough spots. So I think that's better. I don't know if it's where it's certainly squeezing the owl's neck. That's stupid, but I think it's going in the right direction now, which it should have 151 days ago. Okay. So now this scene hasn't really changed. I need to change that colleague though, because if she has this many lines, she needs a name and some sort of a personality. But I think that is... So this Holly is telling the audience, a.k.a., well, I should say her colleague, a.k.a. the audience, about... Oh, I changed that quite a bit. 12 years of being there for her. Oh, maybe I'm changing it back. And so the colleague is not buying or buying into, or she wants no part of this pity party, basically. That's what I want to get to. I don't know if I'm there yet. But right now, I don't really like that, because I want the colleague to say basically, hey, Holly, it's not about you. All right, yay, Katina. It's a big search and replace for Katina. So Katina, about Lexi. So now Katina knows who Lexi is, so I got to make sure that matches up with the sand volleyball scene. So Katina, being a bit older, has got kids, and she's married, and I wanted to introduce the idea that, hey, you're not even this girl's mom, you're not even her aunt, you're not even related to her, and yet you feel like you're struggling with this communication breakdown or whatever, and imagine how much harder it is when they're your own kids. And then at the same time, when she says never say never, meaning, hey, someday maybe you'll start a family, which I think is another thing that is kind of an undertone that Holly, as the cliche goes, here's the biological clock ticking. Speaking of ticking, I hope this ends soon, because I got to go get my hair cut and get my car serviced. So I'm just tweaking. There we go. Now tweaking her age. Tweaking her dialogue. Never say never. When in doubt, cut the line. So, lukewarm on that. Now that is better, but it's a little too on the nose. But we know exactly who is to blame. Is that line going to make it? Drum roll. If you hear any creaking and cracking, that is the snow. I don't know. Well, it's not the sound of the snow melting, but it's the sounds that happens when you've got snow in your house and then it warms up a little bit and things happen. Sounds like it's time for a change. That's kind of a deep, meaningful line, isn't it? So let's get rid of it. I don't know, really even know what that means. Not everyone handles change. Oh my gosh. Change. What's the change? Change in being married and not married? Change in having a family? Now that is a little better. Wow, the day ends 1:52. Did it go as fast for you as it did for me? Was it as good for you as it was for me? Man, long way down the road, but I see a long road ahead. So hang in there with me or not, and tell your friends. Bye.